find watercolor pencils too confusing or not versatile enough to create beautiful paintings? Because I think I can change your mind with this 20 techniques demo video. I use Derwent Inktense watercolor pencils, but it works with all watercolor pencil brands. Color in order to plan a painting. And yes, with watercolor pencils, planning a painting is a technique in itself because you have choice with this medium. You can choose to color and paint one section after the other by just adding water, like I did here. This will be great if you'd like to test a certain brand of pencils or try certain techniques before committing to the whole painting. Another way to do it is to plan the entire painting right away and even place the first shadows so it's almost finished. And that, I think, is better when you already know the pencils you're working with and when you kind of know what other techniques you will be using to turn this into watercolor, which was the case here with this painting of a yellow door. Use watercolor pencils to sketch a painting as you would with a regular graphite pencil. This comes handy when you're confident in your drawing or if you're scared the graphite pencil lines might show later on. Watercolor pencil pigment dissolves with water and turns into watercolor, so it can be a great way to keep the sketch discreet. I tried an erased watercolor pencil to see if it works, and as long as you don't press hard, you will be able to get most of it off. Maybe not all of it though, and this is why I personally prefer to use a regular pencil for sketching, but for quick and spontaneous watercolor sketchbook studies, this technique is going to be awesome for you. Create gradients. You can do it with just one color or more colors. I suggest to use more than one color to make a painting look more colorful and pleasing to look at. Start with a light color, and once you're done with it, add another one that you can also overlap on top of the first to create a natural transition between the two. When you add water, make sure to start with the lightest areas first and move towards the darkest ones. If you do the opposite, you will be transferring all the dark tones onto the light ones with your paintbrush. Use pressure. With pressure that you apply with your hand on the pencil, you can deposit more or less pigment in the paper. Press hard while holding the pencil up straight and there will be more pigment. Press lightly while holding the pencil sideways and there will be little pigment. To press little is great when you want to create a gradient with the white from the paper. To press hard, I think, is best when there's already a base of paint and you just want to add shadows or some detail. When you want to build up shape and just draw something, I suggest to use the fifth technique, which is layering. Layering is when you add color, then add more on top and so on. It's great when you're starting from scratch like this, because you can slowly build up colors and shape in your drawing by applying normal to light pressure. When you wet the pigment, you will avoid very hard pencil strokes showing and get a smoother look than if you press hard right away. This is why I keep hard pressure strokes for shadows when the base is already there. Lifting. To lift pigment means to take it off, or at least some of it off. With watercolor pencils, once you wet the pigment and that it is still wet, you will need to have a clean and just damp paintbrush at hand, and then you press quite hard and remove some paint. This is when you want to create a highlight in your painting by getting the whites from the paper to show again. You will need to clean the paintbrush every time you repeat, but make sure it's not dripping wet, otherwise you won't be able to suck up all that pigment. Hatching. Hatching can be a nice way to add texture to a watercolor pencil painting. By hatching, you can direct light and shadow where you want it. Tight lines where you want your darkest parts, looser ones for the light parts. This can be done to emphasize shadows and texture after a base layer was already applied and painted, or you can use it straight away like I did here, and watercolor pencils are perfect with this technique. It's something you couldn't get with watercolor, for instance. Experiment with various paintbrushes when activating the paint. Take the hatching for instance. You can activate the paint with a damp, flat, synthetic paintbrush as it will be more rigid and keep the hatching from melting into a solid color. And a flat paintbrush will be more convenient for this purpose. Make sure the paintbrush is not full of water but almost dry, and keep your brush strokes directed in the way the hatching is for it to be effective. If the brush is too wet or there's a lot of back and forth with the paintbrush, you won't be able to see the hatching anymore. By using some pressure, you can create certain patterns meant to come out a bit stronger when activating the paint. It is the case here with wood cracks. This technique is extremely powerful for watercolor pencils because it will be very easy to create all kinds of details on a painting. Create a hybrid look, half paint, half pencil. You can play with that effect more or less. Here I activated most of the pencil strokes and left some areas untouched to show more texture. Remember that you can leverage using different types of paintbrushes or even objects like a sponge for instance to create different looks. Draw on wet paper. Similarly, you could also wet the tip of the pencil then draw, but doing the latter, drawing on wet paper, works best to leave a strong pencil mark where you want it. It's very efficient to paint details and to do it very fast. Dip the pencil in water for texture. Look at how awesome this technique is. When you want strong highlights, it is the best way to get a lot of pigment in one place on your painting. Simply dip the pencil in water and press hard on the edge of the lead. Wet the lead. This is the technique you want to use to apply smooth strokes or deposit concentrated pigment fast, without any pencil strokes still showing at the end. To achieve it, wet the lead with a paintbrush to get pigment and paint. Spray water where you colored with pencil. To create more of a watercolor look in your paintings, you want to start using this technique. Color, then spray water. Experiment with getting closer or farther away when spraying. This is how I was able to turn these strokes into watercolor-like rolls, and you can't even tell I did that if I didn't tell you. Make watercolor paint out of your pencils. To do that, you can scribble with your pencil on watercolor paper and use that as a color palette. You will need to wet the pigment and get it on a paintbrush. This would be very efficient to paint smooth washes like a sky, or something where you do not want to see any pencil marks still showing. Add another medium to achieve the desired effect. For the example of skies, you could work with regular watercolors, then add watercolor pencils for texture and details. Or, like here, pick up a marker and add details and shadows with it. There are many ways to go about this. Feel free to be creative with this one. Create paint splatters. You do that by picking up watercolor from your swatches or directly from the lead of the pencils. Make sure your paintbrush is wet so it soaks some of that pigment in, and then flick it at your paper to create splatters. Add white gouache to your watercolor pencils. Again, you can do it by making swatches first or picking up paint from the lead. Mixing white gouache to any color of your choice will make it more opaque, and that will help it show better on paper. I often use this technique to create light but strong splatters that do pop up the page. I use this in my Watercolor Pencils Basics Skillshare class. You will find a link to it in the description of this video if it interests you to learn and paint this realistic apple with full guidance from me. Create shavings with your watercolor pencils. I did it by scraping the lead with a cutter. This works well to drop bits of color into wet paint. Otherwise, if you scrape a lot of pigment off the lead, you can set it aside and activate it to use as watercolor. Glazing. This technique consists in applying a coat of paint over the top of your painting in your chosen area. It can help alter the original color you had on into something different. The best way to do it is work with liquid watercolor again, whether it is from the picking it up from the lead with a wet paintbrush or creating swatches. For instance, applying yellow here on top of red gives it more of a magical glow, but I could have chosen to make this darker too with a dark color. If you've made it till here, please type in comments the name of the movie in which you've seen these doors in, because this will help my video being seen by more people, and I really appreciate your help. I'm making more fun watercolor pencils videos these coming weeks, so don't forget to subscribe, and in the meantime, learn more art tips with my watercolor videos right here. Thank you for watching, and see you soon.